I think you're gonna like this one. Scout, Chapter 7. I had a refreshing weekend. I thought I was only going to be spending Saturday evening with Ponyboy at the game, but I spent Friday evening and all of Sunday with him. After school, Pony and I walked home instead of 2-Bit driving us. We both love to walk, and we talked the entire way. We talked about movies and music, among other things. I told him one of my favorite movies is Seven Brides for Seven Brothers. This is something I would never admit to anyone regularly. Nonetheless, I told him. He likes the movie too, to my amazement. He told me how he used to daydream about a similar scenario with his gang of friends. With Dally and Johnny together, they were 7 of them. In the movie, there were 7 brothers. They were rough. They didn't dress well. They didn't shave. They had no manners, and they loved to fight. Plus, they lived all under one roof in the mountains. Things changed when the eldest brother, Adam, falls for a woman when he rolls into town. They marry, and his new wife tries to straighten them all up. They have a hard time adapting because they're so used to their ways. To make a long story short, after some fun adventure, they each become fit for a wife, although they basically kidnap their wives out of frustration. They all end up falling in love, and each brother ends up with a bride by the end. It's a fun musical with a lot of dance numbers. Seeing that Derry, Soda, 2-Bit, Steve, Johnny, Dally, and Pony are 7 greasers from the rough side of town, Pony would fantasize about them as if they were the brothers, more or less. Each of them ending up with a bride after going through a similar story. Pony said that he thinks that his gang would have been hard to reach. Most of them being a tough greaser is the most important thing to them. He jokingly said maybe it would be 7 brides for 7 greasers, but only 3 of them end up with a bride. He told me Soda, Johnny, and himself would probably be the only ones with a bride. I thought it was kind of cute he fantasized about that. Seeing them dance and sing would be quite the sight. When we got to Ponyboy's house, we unloaded our bags, and we went to visit this creek Pony and Johnny used to go to. It opened up a chance for me to learn about him and Dallas. He told me that he and Johnny used to go skip rocks at the creek. He then told me about him in detail. I didn't need to ask. He told me how he looked like a lost puppy who had been kicked around. He also told me how his parents were not kind to him. They would beat him when he was home, and didn't care about him when he wasn't home. He never did well in school, and he was Pony's best pal. Dally loved him like a younger brother. Dally had nothing. He was on his own at an early age. His parents didn't care about him either. He was tough as nails and had a bad attitude, but he was sympathetic towards Johnny. He was also very loyal to his gang of friends. We went to go sit on a bridge with a railroad track on it. The sun was setting soon. I asked what happened to them. He told a long story about how a group of drunk Socs tried to drown Pony in a fountain at a park. I wondered if it was the same park where we first met. I asked, what's a Soc? He explained, the rich preppy kids who keep their hair short and neat. Figures. Dally earlier that day was hitting on and being crude with a Soc girl. But she wasn't just any Soc girl. She was a thinker, he said. Cherry Valance. He smirked when he said her name. Cherry and her friend got Johnny and Pony to sit together with them for the movie after Johnny told Dally to leave them alone. Johnny is the only one who Dally would have let him talk to him that way, according to Ponyboy. After a while, Dally shooed away altogether. When Cherry and her friend Marcia's drunk boyfriends learned about it, they tried to drown Pony and kicked Johnny around. Johnny killed Bob in self-defense with a switchblade and saved Pony's life. The drunken Socs ran in fear. Eventually, so did Pony and Johnny. Dally, who always seemed well prepared for situations, got Johnny and Pony to hide in a church in another town. That same church caught fire while kids were playing in it who were on a field trip. Johnny and Pony saved the kids, but the roof collapsed on Johnny and he eventually died from his injuries. Dally went in after him to try to save him. Because they had to go to the hospital, this kind of made Pony and Johnny and Dally have to go back into town, where Pony had a lot of other things to deal with. For example, having to go to court to see if Derry is a fit guardian. Also having to face Cherry and Randy again. Although Randy had a change of heart. As well as revisiting the clash between the Socs and the Greasers. Also, Pony had missed a bunch of school. Dally, who already had a hatred for the world, was gunned down by police after Johnny died. Pony suspected it was an act of suicide, seeing that his gun that he pointed at the police was unloaded. He wrote about all that. That was his story. That was his paper to pass 9th grade English, and is the same paper that he won the color TV with. This inspired him to want to become a writer. He told me Johnny told him to stay gold as his last words. It was a reference to a poem Pony and Johnny liked called Nothing Gold Can Stay. Then he recited it to me. Johnny meant the way Pony appreciates things and looks for those things in everything, like how he loves to watch sunsets. As he said that, he turned and gazed at the setting sun and said, "Kinda like right now." We both looked at the sunset. It was beautiful, especially from high up. My heart started beating fast. He liked sunsets, books, and he's gold like Johnny said. "I watch sunsets all the time," I said slow and calmly. "Oh yeah?" Pony said. "I think it's for the same reason why I dig books and TV. I just like to escape this world, so to speak, every now and then, you know?" I said. Pony answered, "It's neat though. There is adventure in this world, and there is adventure in the imagination." You can tell he is filled with hope, despite the hand he was dealt. He turned to me and asked, "Want to make this a thing?" "What?" I said. "Watching sunsets," he said. "Okay," I said with a lump in my throat. I looked over the bridge as a tear rolled down my cheek, and I watched it fall down. "I never knew anybody else who liked to watch sunsets," I said. Pony had his eyes locked on the sunset, and he said, "Now you have a friend who does." I started to bawl. It just kind of hit me. I'm a tough girl. I don't need anybody, I thought. But I couldn't fight it. The truth is, I was lonely and bitter. Pony is a quality person, a wholesome person. If I had an imaginary friend, Pony Boy was all the traits that I would have given this imaginary friend. He's a greaser, but being tough to the point of it running your life, Pony Boy seems to avoid naturally. He made it seem he's the only one out of his friends who watches sunsets, but he doesn't tuck that away. He's different. He's the type to check on a crying girl at the park. If I saw someone crying like that, I'm not sure if I would have stopped, or if I would have just minded my own business. I suddenly didn't like how I hardened myself. Pony noticed me crying, as I knew he would. I stroked my hair back, brushing my bangs out of my eyes. I rubbed my tears on my sleeve. "What's the matter, Scout?" Pony asked. "I've never let myself have too many friends before. We move around too much," I responded. Pony Boy said back to me, "Even if you only have them for a short time, you can always remember them." I gave him a broken grin. Of course he would say something like that. I thought about what he said for a moment. It would upset me big if we moved again, but if we did, I would have rather known Pony for a moment than to have never met him. I want to have hope like him, hope that we can be friends forever. To have hope in general. My hope was always in when I'm 18, I can move away from my folks and do what I want, and maybe never even see that drunken mug again. My mom has shown me little affection. I can't even remember the last time she hugged me. When I looked back at the sunset, the sun was beyond the horizon. "It's gone," I said. Pony remarked, "Well, we had it while it was here." I decided to just savor the moment and not overthink it. I sat back and smiled and took a deep breath. I thought to myself, I think I can check off all 4 words from my paper already. Surely this was a meaningful moment. Surely Pony is a meaningful person. I wanted to tell him, but seemed kind of sappy, so I just didn't. After we left the bridge, I asked Pony, why do the Socs hate the Greasers so much? "I don't know," he said. "I don't hate them. I kinda used to. Many of them think they're better than us and like to remind us and rub it in, and they like to challenge our toughness. But it's not all of them, he said. Why do things have to be like that? I asked. Pony responded, they don't. It's up to the person to see beyond the grease. He continued, were there no greasers and socias where you've lived? He asked, I don't know. Maybe I was too young and moved around too much to notice. I mean, I've seen greasers around, but this type of rivalry is new to me. That's very interesting, Pony said. One of these days I'd like to visit a place where there is no socias and greasers. It's fun to think about places like that do exist, and they're not that far away, and you could visit them if you really wanted to. I continued, Pony, am I a greaser girl? Pony asked, why are you asking that, Scout? People label me a greaser girl, I said. Pony responded to me, if you don't want to be that, then don't. People shouldn't throw you in a box. They should see the individual, not who they think you are, or who you should be. I like that, seeing the individual. I wish more people looked at it that way, I thought. Are you a greaser? I asked. Ponyboy combed his hair with a comb from his pocket, and he said, yes, but above all, I'm Ponyboy Curtis. While we walked, I pieced together myself why his hair was blonde. Before we reached Ponyboy's house, I asked, what happens when it gets too cold? Fall is just around the corner. I'm not sure if I'd want to watch sunsets with you if it's way too cold. It's okay, Pony said. We can watch it in the lot. The view's not as good, but there's a campfire there. Oh, okay, I said. Marshmallows and sunsets, I continued. We went to Ponyboy's house, I gathered my bag, and I went off to walk home. On Saturday, I continued reading To Kill a Mockingbird. I'm really liking it. All of their childish shenanigans is a lot of fun. I've never taken a ride in a tire before. I really like the way Scout handles herself, and she's not afraid to speak her mind. I know at some point, this book is gonna go a more serious note eventually. This mystery behind Boo Radley has me locked in. Dill in the story proposed, more or less, to Scout, then leaves her out a whole bunch because she's a girl. How rude. I never had anyone confess their love for me, something Scout and I don't have in common, but if he would treat her like that, because she is a girl, I would not want to take him. There's nothing wrong with being a girl. Girls are just as smart and clever. I'm glad nowadays people are really trying to defend women and girls. Men and women together make the world go round. There is one of each in basically every home across the world, although I'm not a huge fan of the ones living in my house. In the evening time, I went to Pony's house to go to the game. Still, I had no idea what kind of game it was. I decided to let it be a surprise. I don't get surprises too much, so I decided not to ask. When I arrived, it was more or less time to go. Pony walked outside to meet me. He must have seen me in the window coming. Ready to go, he said. Sure, I said. Then, storming out of the house, all rowdy, Soda, Steve, and Two-Bit jumped into the back of Derry's pickup truck. Derry just walked out casually. There were 2 seats left in the truck. I wanted to sit inside with Pony. That way, we could talk without interruptions, maybe about the books we were reading. Pony wanted to sit with everybody in the back, so I just joined him. I was not expecting Steve and Two-Bit. I was kind of hoping it was just me and the Curtis brothers. I hadn't ridden in the back of a pickup. It was kind of fun, kind of bumpy, also kind of uncomfortable, especially when we would stop at a light and people are looking at us. Will we get in trouble with the cops, I asked. Soda said, not likely. We've done this a number of times. Steve cut in. It's better than riding in Two-Bit's car. Hey, Two-Bit exclaimed. He continued, at least I got a car that runs. Barely, Steve said. Steve continued, and don't worry, I'm working on my set of wheels. She'll be out in no time, and she will purr like the best of them. Pony added, then you guys can race. Soda laughed and said, I wouldn't miss that for the world. I've gotten on everybody's good side except Steve at that point. He didn't look me in the eye for a while. I noticed Steve had a tattoo of a sword on his arm. It looked fresh. I decided to make a remark. "Cool tattoo," I said. He said back, showing it off. "Tough, right? I ain't even 18 yet." He sat back, proud of himself. "So, why a sword?" I asked. "What's the story?" He looked at me confused and said, "I told it already, kid. It's tough." I just nodded. I don't take him as a guy with too many dimensions. Tuba looked at me and said, "You look like you could be Steve's little sister." Steve and I looked at each other. Soda yelled, "Yeah!" Pony half a second later said, "Sorta." "I don't see it," Steve said. He continued, "I mean, look at me. I'm tough looking. She's more like a teddy bear." I cut in. "Hey, I'm tough plenty," I said. His remark bothered me. I don't look like a teddy bear. I couldn't fix my bangs because of the wind in my hair. Tubit said, "She's right, you know. She beat up a boy at school." "Really?" Steve said. "If I were you, I wouldn't use the word tough to describe yourself too many times in a short period of time. It makes you sound insecure, and that's not tough. A tough person just is," I said. Two-Bit went, "Ooh," trying to hold in his laughter. Soda folded his lips with his eyebrows up. Pony looked at me and put his arms around me and looked back at Steve with a smile. Steve looked shocked and angry. It turned into a broken smile showing his chipped tooth. He said, "You know, I like you, kid." I said back, "I would like you a whole lot better if you would call me Scout instead of Kid." He looked at the guys and said, "Ooh la la. I'm not a kid, I'm 14. Anyway." He put out his hand and said, "Deal, Scout." We shook hands. He made sure to give me a hard squeeze. It was painful, but I kept my composure. Steve asked, "So, Scout, what started the fight?" "Well, this misguided fool told me I throw like a girl." Everybody laughed. I tried to keep myself from smiling myself. Steve told me, "You got little sister qualities, all right." I was humbled. I was officially on all of Pony's friends and brother's good side. Pony didn't talk that much on the ride. He liked listening to his pals. We made it to the stadium without getting in trouble. In fact, I saw other people arrive doing the same thing we did. To my delight, it was a football game. I watch a whole lot of football on TV. It's the only thing my dad and I bond over. It's why he likes that I play when I can. Bless Derry's heart, he got somebody to swap out their seat so I could sit with them. I sat at the end of the group beside Pony. The guys were all hollering except Derry. He watched intently. Derry used to play, apparently. I mentioned football was my favorite sport to Pony. Pony said, "It's all of ours, but tied for track for him." "I know why it's Steve's favorite sport," I said. "'Cause it's tough," I said sarcastically. I watched my tone so that he didn't hear me. Pony shook his head with a smile. "Want something?" Pony asked. $1 million, I said. "Something to eat or drink?" he asked, with a smile. It was with his eyes again. I said, "Well, technically, with enough time, you could eat." "Okay, I'll cut it out. A Coke is fine." "My favorite drink," Pony remarked. People behind me threw some popcorn and some got on me. Pony picked them off me before he got up. I decided to follow him. I caught up with him, and we walked to a long line. Maybe this was a mistake, I thought. We might miss a whole lot. Pony and I looked at some people kissing. They were not shy, just kissing by a wall, making out. I wondered if Pony has kissed anyone. Maybe I won't feel as bad if he hadn't. I won't lie. I watched to see how it was done. Looks easy enough. I advanced in the line and bumped into a Soch in front of me in the line, because I was still looking at the kissing people. He turned around angrily and said, "I happen to not like having grease on my favorite jacket." It looked like Pony was gonna say something. Then, the guy behind us cut in, a tall greaser with really long hair that fell in strands down his cheek. The rest of it was combed back, and he wore a leather jacket, and he had on big sunglasses. He said, "Hey, Let's make this evening about football, shall we? The Soch just turned right back around. Hey, thanks, Pony said quietly. The greaser said, Don't mention it, greasy kids. I don't want to miss more of the game than you do. The way he said greasy kids was playful. I knew he stood up for us because he figured we were his kind. I felt kind of interesting. I asked Pony in his ear, Do you know him? No, he said. Never met him. I looked around, seeing greasers every now and then, wearing their emblem in their hair. Every time I saw one, I felt comforted in a weird way, almost like they were extended family. I also felt a weird sense of belonging. And I was only a greaser girl for a week. I saw some greasers nod to each other just walking by. I decided to be bold and socialize with my fellow greaser behind me in the line. You, enjoying the game so far? He replied, Football's a good time. Us greaseballs tend to like the game. If you don't, what's your business wearing grease? It's one of the toughest games around. I know, right? I said back. Mm-hmm. He said back to me, calmly. Ponyboy had a funny smirk on his face and was giggling. Our team lost at the very end. It was a close game, but I had lots of fun. On Sunday, Pony and I just walked around, basically the entire day. He showed me around town. I saw where he would go bowling, where he watches movies, where they get haircuts, although must not be too often, where they buy grease, and other places. Pony told me it took him a while to revisit the places that involved Johnny and Dally, but with time he overcame avoiding those places. I met Buck Merrill. The logo is reference to his missing 2 front teeth. The Buck's bar is fairly new. He's a proud businessman. He figured that because the DX gas station next to it was so popular in town, he wanted to invest in the vacant lot beside it, and then he turned it into a bar. It became a hotspot in town, Pony says. Buck Merrill and his missing teeth and cowboy hat have become somewhat famous in town. He gets recognized a decent amount. Buck is looking to get a pinball machine in there. I visited Pig also. Buck gave us a ride in his T-Bird to his rodeo where we got to meet horses. It was neat. Later, when I got home, my dad learned my mom lent me a $5 for the purse. He was really mad. My mom tried to defend me and tried to defend herself, saying that I never asked for anything and that it was so I could hang out with some kids from this new town. I appreciated her sticking up for me. My dad turned to me and asked where the purse was. I don't have it, I said. What? He said angrily. My friend has it. We're sharing it, I replied. So, some kid who is none of my business has a purse that was bought with my money, he said angrily. I just kept quiet. It's not that big a deal, I thought, but if I told that to him, it would provoke him. We just moved. I'm just settling into my new work. We could have used that $5. He said. I could see that he turned over to look at the empty beer bottles by the front door. He was probably counting them to see if there was one bottle left somewhere that he hadn't drank. Maybe he was irritable because he didn't have a drink. I made a sigh and shook my head. My dad noticed. What? He asked. I didn't say anything. What is it? He yelled. I stayed quiet. He approached me. I clenched my fists. I saw you, kid, so you ought to just spit it out, he yelled. I looked at my mom. She shook her head very subtly, with wide eyes. I looked back at my dad. I decided to just go for it. I had a great time this weekend, and that won't change if I speak my mind. I felt good, so I had a boost. So I told him, if the money was for booze, I have no regrets, drunk. He slapped me in the face hard. I knew he would. I wanted to try blocking it, but I barely finished talking when he slapped me. I started breathing hard. You listen here, Belinda. I'm an adult and I do what I want with my money. Understood? He said. I shook my head, yes. Smart-ass kid, my dad said, and shoved me. I fell on my backside. I don't think he meant to push me that hard. I remembered when Derry called Pony a smartass, and when Derry slipped on the potatoes and fell on his backside. While I was on the floor thinking about it, I smiled. It made my dad upset even more. "I don't think I made myself clear," he said. He started hitting me repeatedly while I was on the floor. I tried my best to shelter myself. My mom just left the room. Thanks, Mom, I thought. When he was done, he told me, "Now get your ass to bed, you have school tomorrow." I went into the washroom. Figures, my cheek was red when I was looking in the mirror. I washed my face, and it was sore. Then I brushed. I smiled to see my teeth. I hope my dad doesn't chip my teeth like how Steve's tooth is chipped. His is chipped on the bottom left side of his front tooth. I have nice teeth. If nothing else, I at least have nice teeth. Steve probably thinks his chipped tooth looks tough. I think it makes him look like a geek. I thought about what he said, and doubting my toughness. I'm tough plenty. I stood up to my drunk dopey dad even though I knew he'd hit me. I thought about what the guy said about Steve looking like he could be my older brother. I wonder what my life would have been like if I had a sibling. Like Gem in Scout. He looks out for her, except for when he tried to avoid her at school. If Steve was my brother, would he stand up for me? What if I had brothers like Pony and had a special bond with them? When I was done, I walked out. My dad was watching the TV on the couch. I daydreamt me attacking him while he was distracted. But that would be no better than what he does to my mom and I. I won't lie, I often daydream I kick his ass. Half the time I feel guilty, half the time I don't. Sometimes I worry I'll just crack one of these days. I felt a chill thinking about it, so I tried picturing happy thoughts. I walked into my room, and I sat on my bed. I thought about Pony, Two-Bit, Soda, Derry, Tough Steve, and I smiled. I think I felt like they'd adopt me into their group, that they'd have my back. I could always go to them, I thought. I could with Pony, at least. I could guarantee better times for myself, and not just in a book. I looked over at To Kill a Mockingbird. But I didn't want to sleep in Two-Bit's raggedy car, so I just went to bed instead.